The scene is set outside the Looking Glass Cabaret. The doors are beginning to close to the punters, and the mortal crowd is starting to file out. Outside, waiting in the car, is John Stanhope. His driver, Jeffrey, keeping the meter running. John is clutching a bouquet of white roses, long-stemmed. He is waiting for his long-time paramour and partner in all things wicked and benign, Calliope Talvararis.
The last of the Denzians stumble out, drunk and happy from their festivities of the evening. Calliope finishes waving to one of her male associates that's tending the bar and tells him to finish locking up for the rest of the evening. Still in the rest of her evening gown attire for being the madam of the night, looks over to John to see if he's appropriately dressed for the evening as well.
John is always appropriately dressed. A little drab, perhaps, compared to your own, but his crisp navy blue suit is impeccably tailored and ironed, as always.
Evening.
Well, I'd hoped you'd have finished up a little earlier, but I suppose business cannot wait. And John reveals from behind hand a bouquet of white roses.
Always the charmer, I see. She goes to sniff it with the heightened senses, letting the scents linger over her, appreciating the freshness of the pick.
I thought since this evening was a very special occasion, we might go out.
Special occasion? It's just a Monday.
Ah, but it is a rather special Monday, is it not?
It's Cinco de Mayo.
1 year today, you were brought into this life, and it is customary in my clan to celebrate such things.
Her expression drops from being fairly jovial for the evening, just blankness going down across her face as she starts to relive the flashes of that night a year ago in her mind. She doesn't say anything yet, but she just looks like she's deep in thought, almost as if she's reliving the experience.
Uncharacteristically, John is not as adept at picking up her facial expressions, too enthused at his own machinations and plans for the evening. His smile never waning, he seems to be looking off into the distance. Yes, it is quite an event on the Ventru calendar when one is accepted into kindred society. Alas, I did not pin down the right date, but through a couple of boons and my own elaborate resources, I was able to discover your, in fact, embrace date. And so, it is time for us to go out. A year today. My word, I always look at you and I see an ancilla, perhaps even an elder when it comes to politics. I forget so often how young you are.
She sighs heavily, even though she doesn't need to sigh. The youth in her still showing in a lot of her mannerisms that haven't quite faded yet. I suppose for your clan it's a celebration of finally being accepted. I wasn't quite in the same situation.
Come now, the Toreador, if anything, never need an excuse for a party.
I suppose.
No.
She thinks.
I understand. Sorry.
No, I was to say, She thinks back on the evening of how it was. Night down in Atlanta. Walking in, a grad student looking for extra money. Just trying to take an extra night gig to make the rest of the ends meet while attending school. Zimmer's Follies, it said. Little did she know, Zimmer wasn't all he seemed to be, just some ludicrous small German man with eclectic tastes. Living in the past. How little she knew that he was living in the past. One audition, the role of a lifetime. And in one instant, that lifetime was stripped from her. Never asking, never pruning, never stalking, never seeking one out and following them over years, pruning them and preening them for excellence. Merely a whim, a passion, a passing fascination, another whore to fill one's bed, to try to replace that which was her grandsire, that which never could be replaced. She pushes it all back underneath that beast that lies within and carries on, because that's what's expected of her. She smiles at John, never saying any of what's going on in her mind, but taking the roses graciously and heading towards the vehicle.
I understand that perhaps our lives were very, very different. I would not wish my induction upon my worst enemy, and I'm sure if I am any judge of character, yours was just as rough. But that very act of barbarism and that giant fool led you to me. You have to forgive me if I am jovial of the prospect.
I'll turn you into a hopeless romantic yet.
I feel that I'm already there. Besides, I have a few little entertainments upon the evening. I thought something a little different. We've been to the art galleries and operas, well, the little that actually reside in this accursed city. There's one thing I suspect we haven't done.
Well, let's see what you have in store then. Allons-y.
John descends the stairs eloquently with Calliope, and upon opening the door then resumes his hunched and limping posture. Geoffrey gets up and opens the door for the lady.
Evening, Geoffrey.
Mom, he replies.
She goes ahead and seats herself in the car, her floor-length gown, lifting it up gently so it clears her stilettos, crossing her legs to sit into the vehicle, not bothering with a seatbelt.
John slides in, pulling his cane in, closing the door, releasing from a small bag next to his seat a bottle and a couple of glasses. This one I've been saving for a special occasion. Drive on, Geoffrey. He taps the top of the car.
Well, what's in it? Are we going to play guessing games again, like the first time we met?
I haven't had a chance to really go into the lab recently due to my new appointment. So I dug up an old favourite. Something that I couldn't mass produce. It was just too unique.
She looks over at the bottle to see if it has any label on it.
It's one of his personal labels back when his business didn't have a factory or anything along those lines. You can see that it was all handwritten and inked by himself.
goes to read the label. Doesn't need to look at it closely, her vision being above the human standards.
The label is very simply written, mainly to mask its actual contents than anything else. It's beautifully embroidered, but the label simply says, "Long road ahead."
One that you can drink.
I can enjoy the flavors, but I cannot imbibe.
Very well then. She goes into the seat area in between the seats in the back where you open up the little miniature door and there's small bar accommodations. Ritzy car.
As she sips the drink, you can feel what appears to be at first glance a very neutral palate. It's not exactly very exciting. It doesn't dance along the tongue. However, once you've swallowed, the flavor trails with you, and with the slight inflections, begins to tell a story of taste. Small bursts of ripening fruit, followed by a thick, oaky, gravelly taste. It seems that the pull of it lasts with you and carries on. It reminds you, in a very artistic way, of one of the old Motown songs of hard work but twinges of hope.
She lets the bouquet linger around her nostrils, takes a quick swig, slurps to let the aromatics come in, and then spits it back off into the spittoon, as someone who's been to quite a few wine tastings would know. The slurp just lets everything just go up into her nostrils in terms of the scent and the lingering and the rest of that. Looks over at him. This must be someone or something that you were pruning to be a Ventrue. It's too similar.
Interesting. No, this was a happy accident. An employee at the casino who only stayed with us for about a month or so. A very interesting young man. Very talented, He had a way with people, not in a domineering sense. He seemed to have this wanderlust, but could fit into any sort of situation. So cheerily optimistic, it did great on occasion. But it seemed that he had no true direction, that every direction he went in was his direction.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's a little alien to my sensibilities, but I appreciated it for its uniqueness.
Go with whatever path presents itself at the time. As they say nowadays, you do you. Do what you feel.
A very American expression.
Well, not saying that he's not going to have hard work. Just go with whatever pleases him at the time. He doesn't need to slave away for the rest of everyone else. They only get one chance. She looks at the phone, looks at the notification. He's finished closing the bar.
Oh, you keep a tight leash.
Well, he needs to report into me, and then I'll check it out on the cameras anyway. I have the feed on my camera if need be.
Careful of that. I know there's no Nosferatu in the city, but phones aren't as secure as we may think.
Oh, it's the Darkstone phone. Well, Darkstone phone from the last set of the incident before your disappearance.
Poor Darkstone. I'm hoping to come and help him with his new appointment soon. It really doesn't suit him, poor lad.
What'd he get stuck with?
Keeper of Elysium,
Ugh.
Master of Harpies.
Ugh.
Poor boy.
He's going to hate that.
He never truly wanted it in the first place.
He's going to absolutely dread that. And I'm going to sit here and laugh and continue to run my cabaret.
Well, he's had it for quite a while, which is unfortunately the state of affairs of the city in a nutshell. Unworthy people, or people who don't want positions, getting them, and everything going to rack and ruin. But despite my fond feelings of Darkstone, I won't let him break exactly all the work I put into that organization.
No, I like him. And you're not dead yet.
No. And I plan to be living for quite some time.
She takes another sip on it as the car begins to slow down.
I know you don't approve of this new position, my love, but if we are to have this city back the way it was, I'm going to have to step into the limelight.
You're going to have to put Wolf back if you want it the way it was.
Chance would be a fine thing. No, we have to live with our decision. We didn't want it to be an anarch barony. And none of us could suffer the madness of Wolf any longer. We thought Lady Clarity would be a saviour, but it ended up being another disappointment. No. I will have this city stable again and be a place worthy of you, my love. A place that we may live our lives in relative peace.
You don't have to carry everyone else's burdens. You can just enjoy your own personal time.
That's what I'm doing now. That doesn't mean I can't do both.
Yes, but one tends to get you killed.
But we spent 3 months in isolation. When we came out, we can't even recognize the city anymore. There is Sabbat in the streets, Kindred no longer controlling anything, fools and morons running the place. If we had kept in isolation for any longer, it would come knocking on our door.
Perhaps we belong in the old country.
You know, we don't go back. Not yet, anyway. Another year or so.
Surely they're more established and civilized over there.
Yes, dear, but I suspect they have long memories as well.
Well, those scars will cleanse themselves soon enough.
I think we have both been exceedingly lucky. But still. We have arrived. John gets out and limps around to the side of the door to open the door for Calliope.
She steps out, a silver sparkling heel at a time, stands up, and peruses the scenery.
You've got now at the New Sarum docks, the part that's Ventrue controlled at least. Not on the docking and shipping area, but much more the private boats and entertainment district, not too far from the cabaret, or at least its new location. And there is a gorgeous 2-deck luxury yacht. There's lights all around its masts and sails. It has a real festive theme, being bright but not gaudy. The gangplank is there, and you can see that already amongst the outer deck is filled with socialites. Men in explicit suits, women in gorgeous flowing gowns, waiters and busboys running to and from, handing glasses of champagne. Scarlett told me of this little do, and, well, I made sure to make it aware that it would be something worthy of you, my love. You are, after all, the guest of honor.
Scarlet, who's this? Should I be worried?
Scarlet is my high society mortal. Keeps me in contact with those who procure fine wines and keeps me in contact with that side of things. A networker. Just a minion, nothing more.
She kind of glares momentarily and then decides to just let it go and begins to walk slowly towards the boat.
John heads up and has brief words with the gentleman running security. You can see that their names are on the list. They go up the gangplank and receive a couple of crystal glasses of champagne and are greeted by a numerous variety of older gentlemen shaking John's hand and young women who seem to flock around Calliope, excitedly speaking of the party's events.
She'll proceed to chat with a few of them there, see if she can glean any information out of them, see if any of them might be acrobatic enough to fill a few slots in her cabaret lineup. John watches her as she just effortlessly glides from one social group to the other, engaging in conversation, but not so much engaging as watching, listening, and then making a few commentaries on them to entice them to talk more about themselves and feel self-aggrandized. The perfect listener when one needs to be. The perfect socialite to make everyone else feel wonderful about their evening.
When it comes to raw talent, there's going to be blessing of few, despite everyone's grandiose claims of themselves. A lot of the attendees of this party have a very overblown sense of ego, believing themselves to be the greatest pianists or singers, and Daddy gets them this lesson and that lesson. There is much more of people who are sponsors of the arts than actually partake in it themselves. The most musically talented is the four-string quartet that is playing along a small raised stage. John.
Yeah.
Sorry, my dear.
No, I said she'll watch them, listen to what they're doing, check out the other instrumentation there.
John, never one to miss an opportunity for networking, begins to mimic Calliope in a sense, both of their styles complementing each other. John is very personable and more teacher-like. He likes to show off his snobbery and expert view on things, making the other gentleman understand his vast intellect. Whether that's actually true or not, he makes a few shakes a few hands and speaks a few words and gets a feel of the general people in the room, gauging a few that he might have private meetings with later, depending on their own ownerships, and he can blend in with his own enterprises to create a much stronger influence center for himself. As the two socialites flutter around, John notices the form of Scarlet acting as hostess. He swans over and double checks that his plans are in order, using his persuasions of dominate to make sure that she is aware of the implicit instructions that he gives.
Well, while John's been doing all the rest of that, Calliope's managed to stop and chat up the string quartet after they've been playing, and he sees that she's gone to go sit down over at the piano with them at this point. if he had paid attention for a bit of that, he'll know that she had gone over and talked to them about various repertoire that they happen to have or know, and the particular quartet happened to know a few things and is now turned into a quintet as she sits down at the keyboard to begin playing. From the conductor's point, gives the nod to set the tempo and start the beginning of Brahms's Piano Quintet in F minor, which happens to be one of the more prevalent and well-known ones from the Romantic period. First movement goes to start to play it from memory with the rest of the quintet. Not having played it with this one, but having played it before for a concerto competition in college. She still remembers all the notes as if it was not that long ago, and I suppose in the grand scheme of kindred things, 2 or 3 years is nothing. But she sits down to start playing with them as if being dressed in black blends right in. Most people don't even notice that there was a addition, nor would anyone say anything about some random person stepping in on the entertainment for the evening. She continues with them and progresses through the piece as I find my damn dice. 4, 5, 6, 4, bam. A specialty in piano. Boop, boop, boop. 1, 2. So that's probably enough successes to not suck.
6 successes, that's beyond an exceptional success. You blow the audience away. You find it difficult for the string quartet to keep up. However, your performance seems to enhance them to do better and take bolder moves, and the ensemble seems to work. And it seems obvious that you were the missing piece to make them truly thrive.
After about 10 moments or so, give or take, time seems to kind of pass at its own pace while the sound is going. The last few notes end in a minor tone, and she lets her fingers sit upon the keys and then lifts them gently, breathes in, and then sets them back on her lap, and then looks over at the rest of the quartet members who seem to be a little bit bedazzled, and then smiles at them, and a smile of a thank you, and then goes up to squeeze the first violinist on the shoulder, nods at him, and walks away from the rest of the quintet.
John, as ever, entranced by her music, simply sits there and applauds loudly. The echo is caught by all the others gathered. Conversation stopped as the performance happened.
She just looks at the rest of the crowd and walks back over towards John. I couldn't not.
Something I should be used to by now. It seems that the stage follows you.
Well, it was nice to get to actually play with some strings for once. I don't have them at the cabaret.
Well, if you want them, I'm sure we can hire them.
Oh, it's not really appropriate for the genre. There's a little bit too much booty shaking going on at the cabaret. A little bit more crude humor. It sells better.
Perhaps we need to expand your cabaret, my dear, something a little high class. Only one is a sure waste of your talents. With so many genres of music out there, we should expand to an empire that will improve upon it muchly.
I don't need to expand. I have enough.
If you say so. If you say so. John says, probably not truly believing it. How can anyone have enough? Alien concept to him. Have you fed, my dear?
No. And she looks over at a few of the more attractive male waiters.
Oh, we're not going to have you dine with the staff. I have a special dinner in mind.
I'm not picky. Well, I am. They
This
need.
is your celebration. I will have nothing less.
As long as I don't kill him.
I'm here. All will be well. John leads her down into the lower part of the yacht, which has been mysteriously absent of any staff. You swing by a red-headed woman in her mid-30s who simply slides John the key. Thank you, Scarlet. You are excused.
She'll kind of follow her as she walks out and then snaps back out of it.
I hope this pleases. And he unlocks the cabin door, opens it up to see a resplendent bedroom. Links in reds and silks, soft lighting, and a rather unconscious gentleman.
Clothed.
Barely. He's of African descent and a exceedingly Adonis of a figure. Strong jawline. Obviously someone who works out a lot. But has quite soft eyes and delicate hands. I found this particular specimen would be just up your alley. A freelance model. He's trying to make it big, although he's running a little low on his luck at the moment, and was attempting to do some night courses at university. Of course, when I saw him, I thought of you, my love.
He is rather dashing. Looks over the fine display of masculinity with the strong, broad shoulders, the toned and defined arms leading down to a muscular abdomen. The whispers of what would lie underneath just barely there cloths and silks that cover his midsection. Like chocolate strawberries.
John circles around the room, eyeing eyes like that of a predator. He takes a seat and perches his hands, looking down over his glasses and leaning forward, licking his fangs as the beast starts to rile and waiting to see his love in a more predatory scene.
She looks over at the gentleman on the bed and begins to walk closer towards him, wraps her hand around the side of his head, tracing from one ear up over to the top of his scalp, lightly massaging the top of his scalp, and then tracing it along the other side of his cheek until it comes down underneath his chin, and takes two fingers and very gently brings his chin and his mouth up towards hers. Wake up. And then lets him fall back down.
The man, a little groggy, wakes up and his pupils are slightly dilated. He seems to be in a half daze as he lurches around, his eyes fixed on the exquisite creature in front of him.
She looks over towards him and ends up positioning herself on the bed, sitting across from him. At this point, the rest of her floor-length gown pulled up and gathered around her knees. She takes one arm, much stronger than one her size should be, and pulls the rest of his body up towards her so that his breath is right on her face. Do you know what I'm going to do to you? She whispers in his ear. looking over his eyes and trying to see what his groggy response will be.
You can see that his senses are beginning to sharpen now, and he begins to writhe underneath her. Still not quite understanding the situation, but his body involuntarily responding to her whims.
She looks over him. They're there now. Moves the rest of the linens aside to leave him sitting there on the bed, up pulled in towards her body, with nothing but his name's day suit in front of her. She leans in toward the side of his neck, begins to run her tongue along the ebony skin lightly as she saddles herself closer towards his hips. The Toreador in her, never wanting to miss a passion, whether it be that of the flesh or that of the blood, leans in towards his body and takes that which is his in towards her as she kisses his neck ever so gently with the tip of her fangs.
John leans forward, pressing his hands perched upon his cane, eyes fixed upon Calliope. His own fangs descend at the bloodlust, wishing he could, like her, partake in whatever took her fancy, but his tastes, due to his blood, were far too refined. But it doesn't mean he cannot enjoy. A bit voyeurish, perhaps, but he needs to be in control, keeping eyes on Calliope for a simple word to stop her if she goes too far.
She pulls him into her, leaning in towards his neck, drawing deeper upon his blood and upon his length at that point in time, enjoying an overload of the sensations. I'm going to roll self-control. Hey, I do okay. Managing just to keep herself riding the wave on that edge before she would break and just lunge into his neck. She leans in towards the other side of his neck at the point where she can just barely look at John out of the corner of her eyes, almost with a come hither and join me look, although that he may not be John's type.
John stands and walks slowly towards her, placing a hand on the gentleman and pushing him aside, as if the mortal there, his life, has served his purpose and now has vanished from John's means of existence. He takes out his hand and wipes away his love's mouth and cheek away from the erroneous blood.
Oh, I could have finished him off.
He's not going anywhere, love. There's plenty of the evening to go.
Oh. She thrusts the rest of his body away, almost like a pouting child would, except for with her strength, he goes pretty forcefully to the other edge of the bed, rustles one leg up, the other leg up and over, shuffles her skirts back down, almost like a sophisticated whore, and recomposes the rest of her hair.
Did you enjoy your gift?
I can always take more. No, I can't pass up a pleasure. Just like you can't pass up an opportunity for advancement.
Ah, how predictable I have become. And I think you'll find that I have been very well restrained and taking your advice to mind, I could have had the princedom by now.
Don't.
No, that poison chalice is a little too much for me at this given time. A decade, perhaps.
Don't. You're perfectly man enough without having to rule a failed city. You don't need to try to make it better. All you need, and she takes one hand and runs it along his chin this time, is us. Not the city. Let it fucking burn.
I will not have the city that you dwell in being a place for independents and morons.
Then we move.
Yes. Where will we move to? Atlanta?
There's a whole world. And I haven't seen it.
This has been our home for quite some time. Let's make it worthy of us.
Definitely not my clan.
I did not want to get into an argument tonight, love.
Oh.
We'll discuss it later. I'm sure there are other things we can amuse you with. What would you like to do? What's make this day special?
Well, you do have a mighty nice room here. And she takes him and just swats the rest of the body away and rolls it onto the floor. He lands with a thud, still knocked out from the loss of blood. Looks over just to make sure he's still breathing. I could clean him up. And then I have all I need in this room.
For a hedonist, you do enjoy certain pleasures more than others.
Some of them are more accessible.
With that, John walks over to the young man, grabs him by the face distastefully, looks into his eyes. Sleep. Putting him into the recovery position, John then stands and walks over to Calliope and takes her by the hand. So, I am glad that even after a year that all you need to make an evening special is me.
Of course you doubted it, but you don't need to. The Reverend wasn't totally off his rocker, I guess it seems.
We have eternity in which to spend the rest of our lives, love. And I cannot think of a more perfect way to spend it.
She smiles at him, moves to throw a pillow at the light switch so that the light switch turns off, grins, and then descends upon him on the red satin.
And as the lights go out, amid the revelers and partiers of the luxury yacht within New Sarum docks, we close our city.